Deep in the heart of a forest called the Lost Woods, a man has made his home in an abandoned castle. This man, Zagan, is a sorcerer who is both feared and hated by the general public. One day, his closest friend, Barbaros, drops by to share some really intriguing news. Apparently, one of the archdemons has passed away. The title of archdemon comes with a massive amount of mana and the authority to command lesser sorcerers. There are 13 in total, and the oldest among them, who lived for about 1,000 years, has just died. Barbaros says there's going to be an auction held in the territory of the recently deceased archdemon. His legacy is gonna be up for auction, so they head over to the auction location, where they see many potential successors for the vacant 13th archdemon position. It's worth noting that both of them are also in the running. The selection is made by the other 12 archdemons, by the way. Anyway, Zagan and his friend showed up just in time for the auction's most extraordinary item. It's a member of a legendary race, an elf. The moment Zagan lays eyes on her, he falls head over heels in love. As the auctioneer starts to list her attributes and announces a starting bid of 10,000, Zagan jumps in with an offer of 1 million right off the bat. The crowd and his friend are stunned, thinking he's lost his mind. But Zagan is only focused on the emotions welling up inside him. He's consumed by the desire to help her, to see her smile, to touch her. Naturally, no one else dares to bid after that, so she becomes his. He asks about the chain around her neck, and the auctioneer explains that the collar is necessary to keep her mana in check. Without it, she might escape. Besides, no one could take off that collar anyway. Zagan is eager to talk with her as soon as possible. Unfortunately, he expresses this desire rather poorly, saying he can't wait to hear the sweet sounds she makes, which shocks everyone in the room. In any case, he takes her home, but the problem now is that he doesn't know how to talk to her, what to say. Ultimately, she's the first one to break the silence. She asks him about the specifics of her impending death, believing that knowing in advance will help her brace herself. He desperately assures her that he has no intention of killing her. In fact, he needs her alive. However, she takes this to mean that she should anticipate a fate worse than death, especially as she glances at the torture instruments scattered around his castle. But all those terrifying tools were left behind by the castle's previous owner. He clarifies he has no interest in torture. He then introduces himself, and in response, the elf reveals that her name is Nephi. She says she's a cursed child, but doesn't elaborate on that. However, she does reassure him that she's a virgin, so he doesn't need to worry. That makes him flustered, and he tells her he didn't buy her to experiment on her, as she seems to believe. When she asks why he bought her then, he says she doesn't need to know that. He's been really nervous this whole time, making it difficult for him to talk with her normally. Nephi, for her part, is really fixated on thinking he's going to kill her. She doesn't have a home to go back to, a situation Zagan can empathize with, as his circumstances were similar. His earliest memory is of living in the trash. He doesn't even remember his parents. In the end, he tells her he bought her because he needs her, so no more of the dying talk. She is surprised by those words, but she accepts them. Still, her completely justified fear of being killed isn't gonna go away so easily, and the artifacts scattered around his castle certainly don't help at all. In the end, he assigns her a room with a balcony where she can gaze at the moon, because she really likes the moon. It was on that night that their very, very long cohabitation began. The following morning, as she opens her eyes, Zagan is there with her breakfast. She's taken aback to see her master having the same meal as hers. It's the kind of food usually given to a slave, so she fears for his life if he continues this diet. However, he's been eating such things all his life and has never thought twice about it. That's when she steps in and suggests cooking something, and naturally, he's happy to take her up on her offer. But first, they need to do some grocery shopping. En route, Zagan fends off a band of robbers who were attacking a caravan. He also pulverizes a sorcerer who was with them. As a result, the caravan's driver offers him cash to accompany them for safety. Zagan's confused, as he's dealt with plenty of pesky robbers in the past, but he's never received gratitude for it. He surmises it's because they're no longer scared of him now that Nephi is by his side. Once they're in the city, the first item on their shopping list is clothes for Nephi. Zagan requests the store clerk to pick out the outfit. Noticing her color, the clerk assumes that Nephi is a sex slave and dresses her accordingly. Zagan is really flustered flustered, but the clerk insists she was merely trying to accommodate his preferences. Nephi, on the other hand, is extremely embarrassed, so Zagan demands normal clothing. So now she dresses Nephi in what she refers to as a traditional maid outfit. Zagan asks about Nephi's opinion of it, and when she responds that she'll take whatever is given, he warns her that if she continues with that attitude, the clerk might dress her in another getup like the previous one. So now she says she does like it. Then the clerk comments on how great it is that she has a master who cares for her, and those words take Nephi by surprise. At the next shop, Zagan asks about a method to take off her collar. However, the guy there tells him he's incapable of doing so, and warns him against forcibly removing it as it could potentially decapitate her. The ideal solution would be to use the original key. Zagan deduces that the key is probably located within the deceased archdemon's castle. As night falls, they head to a restaurant for dinner since it got quite late while they were out shopping. Nephi says she's never had any fancy food, and we catch glimpses of her past. Zagan feels a connection with her, seeing her as a reflection of his own powerless past, and he believes that's what drew him to her. Then they indulge in a bit of romance, feeding each other. Next, we meet a girl who was saved by Zagan some time ago. She was on a quest to exterminate sorcerers who prey on young women when she was ambushed by a wicked sorcerer. She fled until she reached Zagan's territory where he came to her aid. Unfortunately, her superior now thinks that Zagan is the one behind the kidnappings. What's more, he believes that even if Zagan is not linked to the kidnappings, sorcerers are inherently evil and must be brought to justice. The girl asks to be tasked with that duty, so her boss assigns it to her. We'll see how that plays out. The next episode opens up with Nephi saying good morning to Zagan. She's prepared breakfast and can't wait to serve him. The previously gloomy dining room now brims with life, thanks to Nephi's hard work. However, she only cooked for Zagan, so he says they will split it, and since she didn't set a seat for herself either, she ends up sitting on Zagan's lap. They share yet another romantic moment together. Later on, a good chunk of the episode is dedicated to Zagan teaching Nephi about sorcery. He explains that the most basic form of sorcery is a sorcerer's circle. You just have to pour mana into it and the spell activates. You can also beef up the circle by adding symbols to it. Once it's created, anyone with mana can use it. That's why it's crucial to have a restriction that only allows the original caster to use it, preventing others from easily hijacking it. All that implies that anyone can use sorcery as long as they understand how the circles work, which is why knowledge directly links to power. Nephi's happy because it's the first time Zagan has had such a lengthy conversation with her, and he says that it's simpler to discuss a subject one is well versed in. She then asks what he intends to do with such incredible power. He replies his power is meant for survival. As a child, he had a tough time staying alive until he was seized by a sorcerer who intended to use him as a sacrifice. He managed to turn the tables on him before he was actually felled, and that's when he realized that he needed to become powerful if he wanted to survive. Achieving immortality would be ideal. Right then, he senses intruders outside his castle. It's the girl who was instructed to punish Zagan. She's from the church, an angelic knight. Regardless, he easily takes down 2 of the 3 guys who came with her. He then declares he won't kill them, as he needs them alive to tell the tale and instill fear of him in others, but the girl sees through his lie. In reality, he is sparing them because he doesn't want to scare Nephi, and now it's her turn to fight. And she's not an easy opponent. She actually gives Zagan a hard time. Realizing he can't win without giving it his all, Zagan decides she has to die. But just at that moment, Nephi rushes out from the castle, and she's attacked by the last church man who throws a spear at her. Zagan blocks it with his hand, which infuriates Nephi. She unleashes her power on the spot, causing plants to sprout and capture the guy. This leaves everyone dumbfounded. After that, the church group withdrew, as the girl didn't want to involve innocents in this. Nephi, for her part, is scared. She asks Zagan if he found her unsettling after seeing her power. She explains her power isn't sorcery, but something known as mysticism. It's a miracle power that lets you tap into forces beyond the laws of nature just by wishing it. Since she's the only elf who can use it, she was labeled a cursed child. Her whole village hated her. However, one day, when her village was attacked, The villagers asked her to protect them with her power, but she was captured without resisting at all. Everyone else was felled. Seeing that, she thought they got what they deserved. She laughed at them. She assumes Zagan must be disappointed now, but he says he would have wiped out the whole village himself if he were in her shoes. When you have strength, you should live a strong life. So he tells her not to feel down or think she can't be forgiven by the villagers. After all, they're dead, so what does it matter? She asks if she's really allowed to be there, to which he replies that she absolutely is. He can't imagine life without her anymore. Those words make her break down in tears. That same night, Neffy asks her master to sleep with her. Zagan misunderstood her request, but she only wanted to literally sleep together since he always dozes off in his chair. However, he says that he needs to be in that room because it's the central point of his protective barriers. So she suggests using her lap as a pillow, which she obviously agrees to. He then asks her if she would like to learn magic, which she could use to protect herself. He believes she can surpass him in skill, so she agrees to learn, wanting to assist him. She becomes his official apprentice. Over the next month, Zagan teaches Neffy all the basics of magic, and then this two-headed bird arrives, bringing an invitation from the 12 archdemons. They're all mysterious with their robes, dim lights and shit. They're amazed by how young Zagan is. One of them mentions he's the youngest ever selected. Shortly after, they tell him that he's been chosen to be the 13th archdemon, so they will now give him his corresponding emblem. Zagan is taken aback by the density and amount of mana in the emblem, but before accepting it, he asks why they chose him. There are other sorcerers who are much stronger than him. The archdemons explain that it's normal to have doubts since his power is still relatively small. However, there is no sorcerer who can kill him. The first sorcerer Zagan killed was far from weak. Zagan was able to understand his magic with just one look and could create completely unique magic. And he did all this when he was only 8 years old. If he decided to kill, no one would be left standing. If he wanted to, he could take everyone's magic. Given time, he'll become the greatest sorcerer ever. But to keep him in check, they warn him that they can take a lot more from him than he could ever take from them. Zagan is concerned about whether he can really drag Neffy into the shadowy world that comes with being an archdemon. That's why he first requests all the belongings of the deceased archdemon. His goal is to get the key to Neffy's collar. After that, he accepts his new position. Back home, he releases Neffy from her slave collar and asks her to leave because he has no more use for her. We don't see her in the streets, deeply saddened because her master got rid of her even though he had said she could stay with him. And that's where the episode wraps up. Thanks for watching this video. Hit subscribe so you won't miss out on the next part. See ya!